This episode is brought to you by New Moon Wishing, a self-care guidebook for wishful thinkers. Please see the link in the show notes.
Welcome to the Starzology Astrology podcast. I'm your host, Arwynne O'Neill, and today I have two special guest stars. One of them is Sionanne O'Neill, my mother.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And the other is our friend and fan of the podcast, Bo.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for both coming. So today we're going to be talking about something that I know is near and dear to the hearts of our listeners, Friends. And not just Friends, but the show Friends. Yes, it is true. We are doing this. So obviously this show has been around forever, it feels like. It started in 1994, exactly. And I actually remember where I not was when it started, but I remember the first girl I knew who got the Rachel haircut. I was literally working in an office, and this girl comes in one day, and her hair looked amazing, but yet slightly familiar somehow. And I'm like, your hair. And she's like, it's the Rachel. And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. And then next thing you know, like everyone had it. Yeah.
The Rachel.
The Rachel. It was a thing. Yeah. You might be too young to remember that.
I'm too young. I was
hilarious.
5.
We will never speak of this again. But yeah, no, it was definitely a thing. Yeah, so we'll be talking about our speculative ideas of what sign all the characters and friends are and what rising and moon signs they have. We're doing like a total deep dive into every character. And then we'll obviously be pulling in what the actual like actors' signs were. And it's just like going to be a fun, amazing episode, deep dive into one of the most popular shows of all time.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Awesome. So where shall we start? Do we want to go alphabetically or like by favorite?
I do have a question before we get too far.
Please.
We are going strictly personality, or are we letting show clues?
Lore. Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. There are some conflicting.
Very much so.
Yeah. Like a couple of times. And most shows will either have like an actual birthday of a character. Like I remember when Breaking Bad was on, they actually had a birthday of Walter White. And I read the most amazing, and maybe we'll link to it, maybe we won't, maybe I can't find it anymore. But it was this incredible delineation of his entire chart, and it was so accurate and so amazing. And this is one of the fun things about astrology is that you can pretty much cast a chart for any event or any, even fictional event and draw like a great deal of like really cool meaning out of it. But in this case, what we have is like some really weird conflicting evidence, quote unquote, not so much helpful information about the characters. I think there were 2 where they actually had their birthdays, right?
Well, a lot of them are deduced, but
right.
But clearly said, I think maybe only one.
And that was when Rachel was said to be an Aquarius, right?
No. We actually have a day for Phoebe Buffet.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Which I believe is February 16th.
Interesting.
Yes. And then with Rachel, we have repeatedly through the show a reference to her birthday being in May, but she eventually gets stopped by a cop.
And says she's an Aquarius.
Which
is hilarious because, A, Jennifer Aniston, who plays Rachel, is an Aquarius.
Yeah.
So there's an Easter egg for anyone who's like astrologically inclined. Obviously, May is what most people would think she is, which is a Taurus, and that's where we're totally going with her character. But it's funny with a show that has that much of a following. Like they can really do those types of things because they know people are kind of watching it on such a deep level. Like even at the time, it was such a popular show. Like I think it was the first show where the characters each began to get like million per episode or something. And this is, in the primitive days of the internet and primitive days of cable. And so you still had like these insane numbers of people watching every episode that would come out every week.
Right.
So just the popularity is almost hard to fathom for someone now. It's like, do you watch House of the Dragon?
Right.
Maybe I'll get around to it. It's like, we'll calculate the popularity like 10 years down the line. Like it's hard to even know. But back then it was like, oh, no, we know right away that like 15,000 million people watched it the night before. So
should we run through some of the lore? And
let's do that. Let's address like what the canon is, so to speak.
So canonly, Ross his birthday is either in October or December. So we get 2 references to his birthday.
Yeah.
And I favor one over the other. I think you favored a different one at our first conversation.
And then we talked about it, and I was like, I don't know. I think I see.
And then we only get one reference to Monica's birthday.
Yeah.
And that is the one where she's dating the person who's in high school who just turned 18, who's misrepresenting his age.
Right.
And so we only get one reference to that.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm a certain age and 13 months. And so...
Oh, and depending on what month the show came out.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. So that places her birthday sometime March and April.
Which makes sense because a lot of people think she might be an Aries.
Right.
I agree with that.
Rachel, we've already discussed. So a lot of references to May, but also flat out saying an Aquarius.
Yeah. Rachel Taurus.
Yeah, exactly.
But Phoebe, it was Aquarius,
Phoebe,
right? That she actually said February 16th.
February 16th. That is a conversation that she has with her brother.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because out of all the characters, who's the one that would probably actually know her sign and actually care about it? It's Phoebe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Chandler, the only thing that we know about Chandler in terms of lore is that his birthday comes after Rachel's. So if you recall the episode where she is about to have a surprise birthday, Phoebe and Monica wanted to throw her a surprise birthday. Yeah. Then at the birthday party, she was like, I was so surprised. Even Chandler's birthday is after mine.
Right.
And so, or before mine, excuse me. Even Chandler's birthday comes before mine.
Interesting.
So Chandler is supposed to be before
Taurus.
Which is going to be my only outlier.
That's the outlier, yeah. Because otherwise, we all, I think, agree that Chandler is a Gemini.
Yeah. And then there's one, maybe asterisk by our next outlier.
Yeah.
Reference to Joey. We've seen Joey's birthday a few times throughout the show, but it's always in winter. And it's proposed that it's beginning January.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so for anyone who wants to read a little bit more about the canon, if you just Google Friends character astrology, or not even that, Friends character birthdays, there's a really good article on something called Amino's app, which lays out the canon very nicely. Yeah, we are going to contradict that a little bit.
We are.
Because some of the things just don't fit, and it was a show that evolved over 10 years,
right?
So.
Exactly.
Things changed.
Totally. Different writers are going to throw in different things. And what's convenient, too. Like, it's winter, but we want to have a birthday episode. Well, whose birthday could it be? We've already showcased these characters. We'll, go with Joey.
Right.
Even if he's, obviously a Leo. But we tend to disagree about that. I thought Joey was a Leo at first because he's an actor. He seems flamboyant. He's, kind of the most gregarious and friendly and optimistic of the crew. But I think we were talking about that.
Sagittarian, I definitely vote strongly that he's a Sagittarian.
And that would correspond with him being a winter birthday. Mm-hmm. And I don't disagree, because also we can always go, yeah, he's a Sag with Leo rising, which 100% makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And good hair.
Really good hair. I mean, did they all have good hair? I kind of think they all had good hair. But wait, okay, so you had an interesting insight into why you think Sagittarius makes sense, and this was part of the how you doing thing.
Oh yeah, the how you doing.
I want to hear
thing.
that.
Okay, so because that's if the original thought was a Leo,
right,
a Leo or an Aries, there would be that moment of being sort of offended at how you do and have the woman not respond to that.
Right,
there'd be this. There's this moment of being offended. Whereas with the Sagittarian, it's much more likely that there'd be just sort of a somersault and quick pivot to, okay, I'll just move on.
Right, or I was just being friendly. Whatever.
Yeah. It's like, I can roll with it, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's definitely more Sag.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense.
I definitely see that with him.
I like that. Yeah. And I like the idea of him being like a Sag with Leo rising and possibly, as you were saying, an Aries moon. We're in a triangle here, and I'm pointing, which is not fair for our podcast audience, pointing to my mother, pointing to Bo. I should use names, Sionanne, Bo. It's like a family episode.
It is.
But yeah, so, I mean, Aries moon is kind of cool, too. I like the idea of how he's just like the fieriest of the characters, because... And also, let's think about the entrances they all make, right? Like that's very much your rising sign, like the entrance that they that they make, he's always bursting into the room. And so is Chandler too. But like Joey's like often just bursting into the room in this like, I'm here, like what could be more fire sign than that,
Right.
Yeah. It's super Leo rising. Like,
Very.
You can start now. I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because with their actual signs, and we'll go into this like over time, but the 3 out of the 6 are actually Leos. Like Lisa Kudrow, Phoebe, Matt LeBlanc, Joey, and Matthew Perry, Chandler. They're all Leo in real life.
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston is actually an Aquarius. Courtney Cox is a Gemini, which is a little odd, but fine. She's one of the ones
I can see it.
Yeah. She's definitely got that like that sort of elfin, sort of pixie-ish. She's definitely.
I also think of like some of her other roles.
Yeah.
So if you think of her, say in this Scream franchise.
Oh right.
A lot more that. Gemini shows.
Yeah.
That kind of like accidental luck turns.
Totally.
Like Pulitzer Prize. Groundbreaking journalist.
Right.
Like
totally.
Mary's. Well, what was also the show that she went into after Friends, Exposed? Anyway, her character in that show was also very Gemini-esque.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
In a way that Monica from Friends is just not.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
in my opinion. Yeah.
And David Schwimmer, to round it out, is a Scorpio in real life.
I think that kind of tracks too. Actually.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that he's probably like the most divisive character. Mm-hmm. Like most people wouldn't say he's their favorite, I don't think, but it's probably like more arguments, are caused over like do you like Russ? Do you not like Russ? I can guarantee you that out of all the characters, he's my least favorite, but my favorite scene of all time in the entire show is him in the holiday armadillo costume. Like literally even just thinking about that like makes me almost laugh like helplessly. Mm-hmm. Like just his little vestigial arms and like I'm the holiday armadillo. I love that scene. It's just ridiculous. It's just so stupid and so amazing. And like where do you even find an outfit? Like it's just it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's go back into starting with Chandler. We're going to go alphabetically.
Okay.
Sure. So Chandler, let's say we're all agreeing Gemini.
I think so.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we think rising?
I had a hard time with this, but you both seem to agree Sagittarius.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Yeah. I like that.
He's kind of so let's back up and go to the Gemini, right?
Totally.
There's so much that you don't generally get access to when you're interacting with the Gemini.
Yeah.
Not quite to the same level as, like, say, Scorpio or something.
They're secretive in a different way. They're secretive in a, like, they're very surface, but then there's a lot going on underneath. Like, not to bring in, like, well, I mean, it's hard to talk about Chandler without bringing in a kind of a dark aspect because obviously he is the only character in real life who has passed away since the show and incredibly young, like, very very difficult life, and you can even see like when you go back and watch the show, his weight fluctuates wildly. You can see on his face like the level of health is just like wildly up and down, and you can kind of go, oh geez, like what's happening with him this season, And I think we've all not all Geminis, hashtag not all Geminis, but I think we've all known Geminis where that's the case as well. Like there's just there's that fiery but airy mentality that is irrepressibly something.
I think all of those attributes that you described into what we suspect his moon is.
Right. Yes.
So I think after some examination, we deduced that his moon is likely Pisces. And for a number of reasons, we've done a whole episode on Pisces for my last guest appearance here. Yeah. And his life is just a walking duality, especially his family life.
Right.
And his then connections to others, right? So his mom was this very famous exploitative romance writer, right?
Yeah.
And then his dad was the...
Kathleen Turner.
Yeah. Yeah. And had like a whole show in Las Vegas, pretty much estranged. But he is the empath of the group. At least outward empathy, he is that person.
Right.
And so instead of, I don't know how to explain it. He's the counselor.
Yeah.
He's the one that people go to for advice. He's the one that
true.
people go to.
Even though he's always making fun of everybody, at the heart, he just wants to keep everybody connected.
Yeah.
That's a perfect tie-in of connecting that Gemini to the Pisces energy.
Right.
Because he's so mentally agile.
Yeah.
As an intellect.
Yeah.
But also capable as emotionally agile of that Pisces moon, of being able to take the intellect and then respond emotionally to whoever he's talking to or listening to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's almost like the glue that keeps them all together.
Yeah.
Which is, if you watch the reunion episode, you can really see that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we move on into Monica, we suspect that her moon is Virgo, which is in opposition of Pisces.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
And that's the placement that my husband and I have.
Amazing.
In Venus, but in our area of love.
Yeah.
So it's kind of intriguing to see that work out in our assessments. Coincidentally, we didn't put that together. That's just something that I noticed as I was looking down, because Monica's the next on our list.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, like, if you Google like astrology of friends, a lot of speculation comes out like, oh, is Monica a Virgo because she's so anal retentive, she's so perfectionistic. And yes, Virgo is perfectionist, but I definitely don't see her like as at the core Virgo. Like, this is why I said totally she seems more like an Aries or a Capricorn, and we went with Aries because she's got that leadership quality, right? She's the bossiest of all of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's very much Aries, like just kind of charging in, taking charge, wanting to be the boss, very ambitious. And that's not a Virgo thing. But the perfectionism is at the heart of it, which is the moon. And then maybe, as we were saying, like maybe Capricorn rising, because there's that also, that earthy perfectionism, that dealing with like kitchens, which always have to be like clean and perfect and everything laid out exactly, the presentation, right?
Right.
And the businesswoman.
When we look at that, what do you call it? The Holy Trinity on this podcast? When we look at that Holy Trinity, it's not the warmest.
Oh, she's
very cold.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, she's a little warm because of her Aries, and Aries can be very empathetic.
Fiery, yeah.
But it's not a...
it's not the kind of empathy that helps other people. No, exactly. Yeah. It might feel your pain, but it's not going to do anything about it.
And we know all throughout the series, she has money. She doesn't have money. But she always looks back into money.
Right.
She always becomes financially stable. She eventually supports her husband.
Yeah.
While he's going through a career change, and that doesn't actually add a lot of stress to her life. So it's kind of, but she's pretty obsessive about money too.
For sure. And that's, I think I see that Capricorn rising as well, that acquisitiveness, that ambition. And the fact that a couple of the other characters that she has in like a romantic relationship with before she settles down, whatever, with Chandler.
Billionaires or whatever.
Right. Billionaires or older men.
90s, right?
Older men.
Right. Tom Selleck, right?
Yeah.
So that's
the famous Tom Selleck relationship.
For sure. That's very much a Capricorn thing. It's like, that dating up or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she also found, like with his Pisces moon, like an emotional touchstone with him that is not contained in her.
Yeah, 100%.
And she had to unlock, if you recall.
Right.
Oh, yeah. It was not easy at all.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, you don't get to see that right away, even though you're my wife.
Yeah.
She finally unlocked it, and then it just never stopped after that.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So moving from Monica to Ross, because I think one of the things we said was that we think Ross has Virgo rising. And I like to always kind of pull in like the connections of family, because I think that's one of those fascinating things with astrology where you really do see family connections, like either from generation down or, your chosen family for sure. So you see like connections of like the moon and the sun or Virgo rising versus. So if we think that Ross has Virgo rising and Monica having Virgo moon, that would really make sense too with those being siblings.
Right.
Yeah.
It also kind of shows what what his soul is trying to portray to the world. Right. Like this very collected,
perfectly put together,
smart, intelligent,
organized,
human. We all know that he's a hot mess.
Totally.
Right?
So we see that in the first episode. Yeah.
He's such a hot mess.
Totally.
But Yeah. He tries really hard.
Tries really hard. I think we went back and forth between Capricorn and Virgo as he's rising, because at first I was like, well, there's got to be something with Capricorn, because he's obsessed with bones, as Rachel says, like, with putting together his paleontology, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, and this is where my little weird, you're always going to find this with astrologers, you're going to find their prejudices. As a Virgo female, I think that it's much harder for men to have a lot of Virgo energy in their chart. It's harder for them to integrate. And I've seen this time and time again with friends of mine, where like Virgo men just have a harder time with Virgo unless they're just really evolved, really integrated into their chart. But if there's just one random thing in Virgo, it's like, it comes across as weird, or they have quirky things, or like they're the one that always gets made fun of in the group. And sure enough, like Ross, I see that definitely. Yeah. Virgo rising makes sense. And so we talked about like what else would Ross be?
So according to the lore, if we go back to the lore, he's either a Libra or Capricorn.
Yeah.
And he's just not Capricornian enough.
No.
So let's do kind of a couple takes back.
Cool.
His attire is very Capricornian.
Yeah.
His interior design is very Capricornian.
Yeah.
So there are some Capricornian traits, but I'm landing...
But that could also be for the Virgo rising.
That could be.
Yeah.
And I'm landing firmly on Libra.
Yeah. And the first thing we see of him is the failed marriage.
Right.
So that totally tracks with Libra as well. Yeah. I mean, his entire character arc is about relationships. His wife, then being in love with Rachel, then being on a break, then getting back together. It's all about the relationships.
It's all about relationships.
And that's so Libra. And he wants to be focused on other things and not be obsessed, but he is. And the fact that his relationship is like up in the air, is just, he can't deal. It drives him totally crazy. Yeah. And just not being able to find that balance, it's so Libra.
Do I talk about my thoughts on Libra, or
please.
should I leave that?
Oh, please, we beg you.
Go ahead.
Go.
This is your moment.
Yeah.
Libra is so messy.
And they hate being
married
messy.
to a Libra.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is a Libra moon. But the energy is so messy. It is so focused on keeping everything in balance that they're on the edge of their seat, a nervous wreck, trying to hold these things in place, and they just keep falling off.
Yeah,
and so you're using your toes to put that back on the scale and hold your breath, and then eventually you pop.
Yeah,
right?
The spinning the plates. The plates are going to fall eventually. It looks so really cool at first, but it's just the plates are never going to stay.
Which you don't see as an outsider. You only get to see that.
Oh yeah.
If you're very close. To that energy, right? I don't feel like most people actually get to see that from spectators looking on. They always look very well put together.
Libra, so charming.
Yeah, there's a facade. Yeah. Well, that's that whole Venusian. We have to do it with elegance.
Yeah.
And
Ross does have that.
Yeah.
Ross does have that.
Yeah.
And even though he'll fall down and land in the lap of someone who's trying to give him a raise, and it's messy. But they get there, and they almost always do get there, and most people usually do view that as graceful.
Yeah. Or at the very least, it's rewarded somehow. Somehow the Libra is always rewarded, regardless of like what it took to get there, and even if it's just like a ridiculous catastrophe, upon catastrophe, like they kind of end up on top somehow.
Yeah.
So we talked about his moon, and we went through all of this.
Did we say Scorpio moon?
Privately.
Privately, Okay, so let's reveal. We think Scorpio moon.
And that was your revelation, so why don't you tell us about that?
Well, okay, so I have Scorpio rising, and I'm quote-unquote married or fiancéed, whatever, to my partner is a Scorpio. Jesus, that sounded awkward. Anyway, our audience knows. And my mother happily has a Scorpio moon, and so does Allison Price have a Scorpio moon.
Happily. But,
which she does not talk about. Well, it's interesting, though, because Scorpio moon, like, I love Scorpio. The Scorpio energy is a big part of my life, and I think it's fantastic. But obviously, Ross, in real life, David Schwimmer is a Scorpio.
Yeah.
And there is something intense and needy and not all the time okay. And when you're confronted with something where it's like, well, no, you did this wrong. Like, this is why this is happening, because you messed up. There's like this bereft look. And I think we can all call to mind, if we're fans of the show, like the look on his face, like the stricken, like, no, it can't be my fault, but it is. The sinking feeling of, God, no, my life is falling apart and it's all on me. And I feel like there's this depth to him that whether we like him or hate him as a character, there is something that is slightly deeper than most of the other characters to him. Yeah.
His career is also about unearthing secrets.
Yes,
putting them together. So there's that. He also finds himself in precarious situations that his Libra probably gets him into.
Right. Thinking he can do it. And then it's like, wait a minute.
And then his little Scorpio moon is saying, like, nothing stays buried forever. Right?
Yeah.
And you didn't actually read that. What was the famous document that Rachel made him read?
Oh, God.
And he was like, yep, I read it. But then
there are no shortcuts for the Scorpio moon.
Yeah, I think that fits. There is an element of nurturing.
Yeah.
He is probably the most nurturing.
Yeah.
Besides maybe Chandler.
Yeah.
Of the group.
Which is interesting. It's the men.
Yeah. And we have them both pegged as water moons. And so Chandler is probably the most nurturing with Pisces moon.
Yeah.
But Scorpio's nurturing.
Yeah.
Oh, but in fact, this came up in one of the talks with Allison.
Yeah.
That Scorpio moon, the level, it's not the same kind of nurturing.
No.
It's not a soft nurturing. It's a hardcore life or death.
Yeah.
I will save you from the train coming to hit you, or I will do something that, you may regard as insulting because I'm saving you, against
from yourself. Yeah.
And as from a mother's side with that level of, selfless something moment that takes over of, I will make sure that you're fine no matter what.
Here's a very weird digression. And if you're playing at home, take a drink, like I like to say. But this is this weird digression of like, okay, so you have Scorpio moon, you're my mother, I have Scorpio rising. And I remember we had to do this little assignment in like 5th grade or something like that. We had to write like a Mother's Day card. And there was like this little script on the blackboard that we had to write in it. And one of the words was like your selfless love. And I was just like reading it quickly and transcribing it and whatever. And I wrote selfish love because that makes more sense to me. And like the teacher was like, oh, that's wrong. And I'm like, well, I'm already done. And but it made more sense to me, selfish love. Like that, like, why would you want selfless love? What kind of a love is that? That makes no sense to me. I didn't get it. And you're laughing, and I'm sure you can relate to that.
Virgo moon.
I'm a Virgo, and I'm Virgo moon, exactly. So, like, I don't, selfless love just doesn't make sense to me. Selfish love makes sense to me because you got to be passionate about, even if it's family. Like, there's got to be some intensity, right? You're like,
well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
I can certainly relate to that if I just take away the sort of social connotations of the idea of being selfish.
I mean, I was an only child too.
You are such a selfish mother.
I like that idea. Like,
that just sounds like, oh, that's
selfless.
Just so
sounds like, oh, you like, I'm holding you at arm's length. I'm selflessly loving you. Like, oh,
no, because
selfish love. Like, like clutching you.
You're like, to describe that, you're clutching your hands to your chest, and I would, and I would read that as, okay, if I was thinking of some other moon sign,
right,
that would find, oh God, what is your moon sign, and how you then register your own mother's love,
right? Yeah,
My mother had a Virgo moon, and
her mother as well.
Right.
Was like a Virgo.
There's all these Virgo moons.
So many Virgos in our family.
And then, and there I am with the Scorpio moon.
Right.
And feeling like, the incident that happened when you were 5-ish years old.
Right.
Just profoundly created such an intense, nothing will take you away from me.
Yeah.
And like,
there was
super protective.
Just for our listeners, I'm not going to go into detail, but there was a bit of a custody battle. I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's divorced can, that's all we need to say about that.
Yeah.
But
and so there was an intense protective,
for sure,
super, very scorpionic.
Totally. And as the daughter of that, the feeling like motherly love being selfish is, as a positive thing, I think is totally relevant. That makes sense, right?
Well, and you felt very safe.
Totally. Always, yeah.
And in our discussions about that later, was that it wasn't a feeling of being smothered, but a feeling
hell no.
incredibly safe.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at least, God, like lots of kids grow up not feeling wanted at all, you know?
Yeah.
Like, at least I knew my parents both wanted me, you know?
Right.
So that brings in an interesting like layer to this conversation because
Yeah.
Monica and Ross are siblings.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the moon is supposed to be representative of the relationship that they have to their mother.
Totally.
So we also know Ross and Monica's mother.
Yeah.
Right? So, and we know their relationship. So is it so ironic to think of Ross's mother and a Virgo relationship to Monica,
Right.
and a Scorpio relationship
Exactly.
to Ross?
Yeah.
It's so
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
hits.
as we know, like the mother that you project is not necessarily the same as the mother
Right.
as she is as a person, but your moon sign is what you think of your mother, you know, like how the lessons she imparted to you, whether actively or passively. Like I've said on the podcast a couple of times, one of the Virgo moon things I remember that you taught me like indelibly was like always wash your face before going to bed, and you know, like, and I swear a lot, like not on the podcast because it's like against the rules and whatever, but in personal life I'm swearing constantly. But I did not get that from you
No.
because you know you're all about like presentation to the world, like you know you want to seem intelligent. You want to seem like you're put together. You don't want to seem trashy. You know? It's very important. Yeah, Virgo moon. Okay, so, yes, Rachel. I mean, Taurus for sure. We're going Taurus.
Yeah.
It's even canon.
Yeah.
And I think we said Taurus and Taurus rising.
Yeah.
I mean, the shopping, the appearance, the
Yeah.
hair, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we said Leo for her moon.
Yeah.
Which that's a funny relationship to all those signs, right?
Yeah.
So it very much, there's a level of pride.
And it's also square. So there's a conflict there.
Yeah.
And her personality, I think, does have a bit of a conflict. She's one of the characters that has a lot of internal kind of turmoil about what she wants versus what she needs versus what she's, you know, willing to do to get what she wants, and
upholding her dad's pathway that he wanted
That's
for
right,
her.
yeah.
That's very Leo Taurus square.
totally
Yeah.
Right? Pride versus
needs versus yeah.
And then we do know her mother as well, and she is very Leo in nature.
Yeah.
And especially in her relationship.
Yeah.
I have a Leo mother. And so they remind me a lot of our relationship, or more specifically, my sister and my mother's relationship.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so it's kind of intriguing, but very prideful, very Venusian,
Yeah.
mixed with pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean that as a negative thing. I think
Oh, no,
pride
pride
can
is
be
great.
a good thing.
A pride of
Right.
lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do we have to say about that? So we know that Ross and Rachel are
Yeah.
each other's love interests, a Libra and a Taurus,
Yep.
in theory.
That's
That's
very
great.
Venus. Yeah. Awesome.
Um,
And then he's got Virgo rising. She's got Taurus rising. Their house will
compatible.
be pretty clean.
Yeah. Yeah. Scorpio and Leo.
Yeah.
Moons.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of conflict there, but it's
Yeah.
it's a passionate conflict. They're not.
And then those are both also fixed signs.
Yeah.
So there's a
And-
certain just
Yeah.
solidness.
They don't have an easy relationship.
Right.
No.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
But whether you love or hate those characters, and I think they are, as we've said, the most divisive characters, like whether you think that she's annoying and he's like pedantic, blah, blah, blah. Like when they come back together, like who doesn't like burst into tears when they, you know, they finally come back together finally and like kiss at the end of the episode. You're like, oh, thank God,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a certain air of righteousness about it.
Yeah,
It's just how it should be.
exactly. Totally. All right. Phoebe,
Phoebe.
Aquarius,
Maybe.
For sure.
Aquarius all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And with Aquarius rising.
Yeah.
Just
for
fully
sure.
Aquarius.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's something to be said for those who have matching rising rising signs and sun signs.
Alison Price is Leo with Leo rising.
Yeah, it's
all
very
Leo.
what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I would also argue matching moon and rising signs.
That's good too.
selfishly,
That's
'cause I
good
have
too.
that.
Yes.
It's what you see with what you get on at least some level. But yeah, we have that a couple of times in here.
Yeah.
And Phoebe is the original weirdo, right?
Yeah.
Like she's amazing.
Yeah.
And
Smelly cat.
Smelly cat.
Yeah.
Not even a lick good at singing, but doesn't care.
But she can teach
Also,
guitar. She can teach guitar amazingly.
Do polar bear. Or whatever it is.
Claw.
Right.
The claw. I think of that literally every time. My partner Roger plays guitar, and he teaches people to play guitar, and I have to stifle myself sometimes when I see him doing the hand things, and he's like, "Okay, no this one, no this," and he's like doing this thing with his hand, and they're trying to get it, and I'm like, "It's claw, it's claw, just do the claw." Amazing.
I do love Phoebe and her Aquarian nature. It's also very, very, very common with Aquarian energy to have extreme, profound hardships in younger age. She has that over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's so common with Aquarians.
And then just to gloss over it and pretend that you're just an oddball. You're like a weirdo.
Right?
Whatever.
Yeah. I think it's like a prerequisite. You have to have that so that you can become so profoundly weird and okay with that, you know?
For sure.
And,
it makes there's a certain disconnection with what other people might consider normal.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, no, that's just not, I'm not part of that.
Yeah.
She's the ultimate enigma.
Yeah.
She knows French. That she taught herself outside a dumpster when she was unhoused.
Well,
you know?
and then doing the twins thing, having the kids for her brother.
her twin, right.
And all of that.
Yeah.
She's just...
And her mom, played by, what's her name?
Yeah, her biological mom. Who's on the beach.
It's so obvious and, like, actress-wise.
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
I can't remember who that is.
I know. We'll get to it. It'll come to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we landed on Sagittarius as her moon.
Yeah, Sagittarius moon. I like that. I do.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I
like that it's not the same element, because there is a bit, as we said, of like weirdness. And we don't want to throw like a water moon into everybody, because it's not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think she does have like, she does have that sort of like fiery adventurous spirit too,
Yeah,
like
she's
at
way
the
more
heart.
fiery
than
she is watery.
Yeah.
Because you could almost make the argument, especially with all of her past traumas, that she has Piscean energy. It makes sense that we'd land on Sagittarius because they share Jupiter as a ruler, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, let me fold into my emotions. It's like, let me burst out into the world.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. It's a really good way of putting it. Aw, Sagittarius moon. It's awesome.
Which I don't think I know any Sagittarius moons.
Let me think about that.
So
my gosh, of course, Terry Garr.
Terry Garr, yeah, her mom, Terry Garr. Obvious. It's like, it's going to be a weird one, but like when, Pamela Anderson was on like VIP, which is a ridiculous show from like a long time ago, and like her parents were Lonnie Anderson and what's his name from the Fall Guy. From the back $1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man.
Yeah, dude. But like literally, that was her character. She was half Lonnie Anderson and half the Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Like, or $6 Million Man. She was like an adventurer, and she like was. It was a dumb show. Don't get me wrong, but I do love me some Pamela Anderson. And when her parents came on the show, I was just like, of course, like, that's awesome. Yeah.
And her mother Terry Garr is a Sagittarian.
Oh, in real life, amazing. There we go.
There you go.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, that's awesome. And that brings us to Joey.
And that brings us to Joey, who we landed on Sagittarius. This one's a little out of canon, maybe.
Right.
Because canon might have him
being
as
a Leo.
Capricorn.
Or what? Really?
Yeah,
Winter.
Because winter baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, the canon. Yeah.
But he's so obviously not
a Capricorn.
No.
Yikes,
right?
No.
So we can't go canon with that.
No.
I do like that his son is Phoebe's moon. They're obvious.
Yeah.
Not love interest, but,
No, but
more
just-
like sibling.
Totally.
Yeah,
Like a
sibling
sibling soulmate
loves.
thing.
It
Yeah.
should be very saggy too.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
then with Leo.
and then also coincidentally Chandler with Sag rising,
Yeah.
they're best friends.
Totally roommates and all that.
Roommates, you
Yeah.
know. So I think we did a good job with that.
Yeah.
We said Aries moon.
Yeah.
Very just get out there and see what happens.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I mean, because he's not like the dumb blonde of the show, so to speak,
Yeah.
but that Aries moon does speak to like that childlike simplicity of like, you just wait to
He's
see
so
what you get,
childlike, yeah.
you know, and having it all be like fire signs, having it be like Sag, Aries, and then Leo rising because he's an actor, you
Yeah.
know, yeah,
And I think you mentioned bursting through the doors.
Bursting,
right?
yeah, he's bursting through the door all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally Leo. But I like that with the Aries moon. It's like that childlike sort of quality. Yeah.
I also like that you can kind of see when you have that all written out.
Yeah.
You know, he had his fling with Rachel. Rachel's Leo is a moon. They turned out to be more friendly compatible than romantic compatible.
Totally.
That totally makes sense, right? Yeah. And you can do that all the way. Same with Joey and Monica. Monica, the sun, Aries, and Joey is the
Totally.
moon. You know, you can kind of trace their little alignments. No one's too far away, and we say that, or you all say that regularly on the podcast.
Yeah.
You attract
like attracts like,
and these are based off of real people. So the show was created around 6 real friends in New York City, and
totally.
I think we did them some justice here.
Absolutely.
You know,
totally.
it would be interesting to know what those original 6 friends. Zodiac signs.
It would
were,
be interesting.
But I don't know that we know anything about them.
I mean, I did read a book, but they didn't talk about the astrology.
Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah, of course they wouldn't.
Yeah, but I think this played out really well on even the external relationships, you know, just thinking superficially of the various people that came in and out of the show.
God, so
like
many.
Tom Selleck and Brad Pitt had his moment of coming on, Mr. Super Sad.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, just the different people that have come in and their relationships with the different
crew.
friends as, you know, whatever connection they were.
So many guest stars,
on.
that I've probably forgotten about over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've outlined everybody.
Yeah.
Which one is most similar to you?
Oh, right. I'm a Chandler.
You're a Chandler.
Yeah. I'm the sarcastic one who nobody knows what they do for a job. Even when I tell them over and over again.
Oh, funny.
I'm a communication specialist. You're what? Okay, cool. What? What was that again?
You work for Skynet?
Skynet, yeah. I used to work for Skynet. Yeah, I did.
Come
on.
I would not have owned this before, but I think I'd end up just being the female Joey.
Whoa! Oh, that's not what I expected you to say.
Yeah.
No, interesting.
I see it.
Yeah, I see it too.
I see it
too. I don't normally think of myself as being willing to be the clown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I've grown more comfortable with the idea, like, of cute and effervescent.
With the blue hair.
Well, yeah, and the blue hair.
Yeah.
You know, I even had that talk with some of my friends at my residency recently.
She's getting her PhD. She's a scholar.
Yeah.
And,
sounds so serious.
You know.
But yeah, I'm thinking, you know, that I always thought I wanted to grow gracefully into being elegant.
Yeah.
And then I'm sort of resigning myself to that I will never be elegant.
Wow.
And they were like, well, you know, you have to be elegant. You know, and I was like, I'm doomed to be cute. And the 3 people I was sitting with at lunch were like, no, sir. Somewhere in that sort of effervescent, youthly, spirited, you know, trying to find other words.
Yeah, and it's like a pixie-ish quality. It's not cute. It's just...
And it's like embracing that saggy thing, which I just kind of like. It's kind of Joey-like.
Yeah, that's very true. Interesting. How about you, Bo?
I am... So I think I have 2.
Yeah.
And I've asked a lot of people this, and most people go Monica.
I thought that's what you're going to say.
Most people know me on a professional level. And on a professional level, I totally am.
Yeah. Definitely
you know?
That. Yeah.
But I think...
You're the boss.
I think I'm Phoebe, actually.
Aww.
Yeah.
You're Phoebe on the inside and Monica on the outside?
I'm Phoebe on the inside and Monica on the outside,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's what I think, anyway.
I like that.
I do have a lot of Aquarius and Sagittarius energy.
You do, 100%.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. But professionally, you can't get away from it.
Yeah, in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
I can definitely see the Monica persona.
Yeah.
But now I have to ask you, you were like being surprised. So what were you thinking?
About you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could say Phoebe, but...
that, to me, that's almost like that would have been too easy.
Yeah, for sure. And so also, you have no Aquarian qualities about you.
And it's just like there's a quirkiness
there
that's just not...
Yeah. But it's not your core personality at all.
No,
you're very, like, not serious, but, like...
There's definitely something that's more driven and
for sure
solid and motivated.
Yeah, definitely.
Than just the kind of
being
Phoebe.
the quirky. Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, I think
this was awesome.
I think this was awesome, and If you have found value in this episode, please be sharing it with everyone. You can find us at starzology.com. You can email us at starzology@gmail.com. If you want to follow my blog, you can find it at mspink.net. That's mspink.net. And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.